Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. We have something really horrifying today. Superheroes. I don't know what could be more horrifying in today's society than superheroes. They are really scary. They are omnipotent. They overshadow everything. They're all anybody talks about. Well, you know, maybe that's changing a little bit. Well, let's hope so. But I remember when superheroes were kind of a cult thing, and we never thought we'd ever see any really good superhero movies or TV shows that really captured what a superhero was like. And now we went from an embarrassment of riches to simply an embarrassment. It's interesting to see, you read about cycles in cinema and popular culture, but often you don't know that they're happening until after they've passed and you look back on it. But here we can see this happening in real time. And it's kind of a shame to see how it all has played out. But I think there will always be a place for superhero stories. They just won't be the main thing. They won't be the end all of everything. And that's good. Maybe it'll be a little bit more like the 90s and early 2000s, where you had some really good superhero movies here and there, and then a lot of other kinds of movies. But we're not here to talk about movies exactly. You may be wondering why on this horror monster channel are we talking about superheroes? Well, because earlier this season, in October, for our Halloween season, our special Halloween themed episodes, we did a couple of episodes about Ben Cooper, the Brooklyn-based company, legendary company, Ben Cooper. And we talked about some of the rubber masks and the rubber jigglers. Now, what is a jiggler? Well, this is a jiggler. He jiggles. Jigglers are rubber figures. They're not articulated. So even though Ben Cooper, they kind of try to market them as action figures, they are not articulated. They're not really action figures. They are figures. They are toys. They're made of soft PVC, which casually is referred to as rubber. I think, strictly speaking, perhaps rubber is more like latex rubber, but I grew up thinking of this as rubber. It's petroleum-based, really soft PVC, but it's rubber. They're rubbery, and they have that weird oily smell that I loved as a child, and they have that jiggly rubbery feel, most of them. The toy companies that made these things back in the day, as far as I know, never called them jigglers. That's a term that collectors have coined. Collectors refer to these as jigglers, these rubber toys. I think back in the day they might have called them wigglers. That might have been as close as they came. But collectors, beginning in the 90s forward, referred to these things as jigglers. So we did a Ben Cooper jiggler episode, but we focused on monsters and Halloween characters like witches and devils and scarecrows and pumpkins and black cats, and also more movie-type monsters like Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, etc. And I said that we would get back to this topic and we would go over the superheroes. So that's what we're going to do today, because Ben Cooper made a lot of movie-based and cartoon-based and superhero-based jigglers. And I showed you, what did I show you? Did I show you Pac-Man? I don't have him here right now. I think I did, but if I didn't, that's an example of some jigglers Ben Cooper made. I showed you a Casper. I know I did show you Casper. That's a cartoon-based jiggler. And I don't remember if I showed you the Popeye jigglers, but let's just look at those. So here's Popeye. That is an example of a cartoon property that Ben Cooper produced as a rubber jiggler. And Ben Cooper never called these rubber. They called them, oh, PVC or something like that. They used other terms. They didn't call these rubber. But I'm calling them rubber. Collectors call these rubber. Everybody calls these rubber. He's very jiggly. Now, I had one of these as a kid. I had a Popeye as a kid. I don't think I have my childhood one anymore. I also had olive oil as a kid. And here's olive oil. And you can see that these are actually really well done. They're very accurate. They might be the most accurate looking toy representations of these characters from that era. Their proportions and everything is just right. They really capture the character. And that's something you can do in this format. It would be difficult to get these right as a plastic figure, or even as a plush toy. But as a rubber jiggler, that really skinny, cartoony shape works well in this rubber format. Plastic, I think, would be too stiff. It would lose the character. And plush, it would be too thick and puffy and kind of lose the character. But in this rubber style, you can get that long, dangling, gangly, unnatural proportion to a cartoon character. And Ben Cooper made other cartoon characters. I told you that we saw Casper in that previous episode. And think of this as part 2 of that episode. But they also made Fred Flintstone and Woody Woodpecker and some other ones. But I don't have Fred. I don't have Woody. I would like to have both of those. I'd like to have a tagged Casper. So one of these days, maybe I'll get a Woody Woodpecker and a Fred Flintstone and maybe a tagged Casper. That'd be nice. And then I'm sure they made other ones, but those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. As far as cartoon characters. Now here's some movie characters. I showed you a Godzilla last time. But here are some Planet of the Apes. I don't think we saw these, did we? I don't think we did on the last episode. These are Planet of the Apes. They made 2 Planet of the Apes. And let me see which one this is. This is the warrior, right? Yeah. Okay, you see this? There we go. It's the warrior. So that, I guess, is supposed to be a gorilla. In Planet of the Apes, the warrior apes are gorillas. He's got a dagger, not a gun. And he's very jiggly. This is 73, I think. Yeah, 73. And a lot of these are from the same period, mid-70s. Here's Caesar. And the card, the tag actually says Caesar on it. Doesn't look like Roddy McDowell. But that is supposed to be Caesar. Unlike the Mego figures, these have monkey feet. Mego made Planet of the Apes action figures in the 70s, but they had human-shaped feet, and they wore the same kind of boots that other Mego figures wore. These are two examples of movie-based Ben Cooper jigglers. So we've seen some cartoon characters and we've seen movie characters. Now we're going to look at the superheroes. And I've laid them all out. Someone commented recently on a video that the crinkly plastic bothered them. Some of my viewers actually like the crinkly plastic. But to cut down on crinkly plastic, I've taken them all out of their bags ahead of time. And also because it's just such a mess, I want to keep it all organized so they all go back in the same bag. Because these bags are all different sizes. And I just want to, I don't want an organizational nightmare trying to figure out what bag goes to which one. And, you know, so this keeps it all organized. One of the earliest jigglers, the more unusual, I think, is Batman. How can I hold this? He's really rubbery. I mean, he really feels very rubbery. Extremely rubbery. He's very oily. That doesn't look like any Batman I've ever seen, but that is supposed to be Batman. Not a lot of detail. And I think that is because this is one of the earlier designs. And we saw a vampire and a witch and a devil that had this flying design. This used to be Ben Cooper's default format for how to depict any character, really, to make him flying like that. So even if it was appropriate or not for the character, they gave him this flying position. And it works for some characters, not for others. Batman doesn't really fly, but he's in this Superman type pose, and we'll see Superman in a minute. I know that some company put out a black version of this when the Tim Burton movie came out in '89, but I don't think it was Ben Cooper. I could be wrong. And that's the old style Ben Cooper tag, what I call a palette-shaped tag. This is one of the earliest jigglers I bought as a collector. So this goes way back to my early collecting days, like 1989, 1990, 1991, in that time frame. That's how long I've had this one. And he's probably a 73, right? Yeah, he's 73. 73 was a big year for Ben Cooper jigglers. And you'll remember, if you saw that earlier episode, I was really hoping I would find someone to interview from Ben Cooper to ask them about their jigglers. I was not able to find anybody. I asked around, but I don't know. I guess nobody knows anyone who was in a decision-making position at Ben Cooper back then who could tell me a little bit about the approach they took to making these rubber toys and why they got into this particular kind of toy, and just anything. I'd like to talk to someone about these jigglers. I see articles about the costumes, the boxed costumes, and other things they made, but I never read anything about these jigglers. Here's Superman. And I'm assuming that Superman and Batman came out around the same time, 73, but, you know, I could be wrong. It could be that they put one out and it sold well, and they put the other out. I guess if that's the case, I'd assume Superman probably came out first, but I don't know. Probably came out at the same time. Now, he's got that same flying pose. It makes more sense for Superman, and he also has a more old-fashioned looking costume design. But he has this bat-shaped cape with the veins in it and the points at the bottom. And I think that comes from the fact that Ben Cooper was a Halloween-centric company. They were a Halloween company. They made Halloween stuff. So everything had a kind of a spooky Halloween flavor, even Superman. And I don't know, well, I do know that they, in their catalog, they say that these jigglers are good for sales all year round, but I bet they sold most of them around Halloween. And I know as a kid, that's when I saw them. I saw these things mostly around Halloween. So even though it's a Superman, it's a superhero toy, I think they're all basically Halloween toys, more or less. And I think that's part of why they all kind of have a scary quality to them. There's a kind of a spooky Halloween vibe even to the superheroes. Now, I think that Superman and Batman were the first ones they made. And here's another Superman. This is a much, much later. It's the same mold. Look at this. That's the same toy, but it's made of a rigid PVC. There's no jiggle in that. It's like, well, it's flexible, but it's more like plastic or like a vinyl. And you can really see the detail in that sculpt. And this is probably from the 90s, I'm guessing. It could be 80s, but it certainly isn't 70s. It's not from the same era as that one we just saw. Does it have a date on it? I know it's made in China. I don't think there's a date. It's just made in China. You can even see just visually, you don't even have to touch it. You just see that it's very stiff and the details stand out a lot more. The stiffer material holds the detail much better than the soft, pliable rubber. The squishy, spongy rubber. And I really like, it's interesting when you can see the sculpt properly. That's really a good Superman sculpt. And that looks really nice. That's a nice Superman action figure. I like that. So even though these are later, they're made in China instead of Hong Kong. All these other ones are made in Hong Kong. This is made in China. I wouldn't mind having more of these Chinese-made PVC stiffer versions. Because I have over the years seen other ones like that, not just the Superman. I don't know if they made all of them like that, but I know they made more than just Superman. Well, here is my favorite of the superheroes, I think. The Ben Cooper ones, Spider-Man. But let's review this little thing. I think we saw this in the last episode when we covered the monster ones. This is a carded Ben Cooper Spider-Man jiggler. He's got that cool artwork. I don't see a lot of these. Now, I know they made other characters. Oh, I think they made Popeye, and I think they made Woody Woodpecker and Casper and some other ones. So they made several different characters on these cards. But I almost never see those for sale, those carded ones. Those bubble carded ones. That's probably the only Spider-Man I've ever seen for sale. And I've had him also since the 1990s. I've had him, 30 years. Now here's a loose Spider-Man with a tag. He's got those pupils, and he's in the flying position. He has his tag right there. I'm being careful. The paint is so perfect on these, I don't want to rub anything off. Look at that beautiful blue. I love that blue color and the red and the blue, and how accurate that division of red and blue is. They really, much more so than Amigo or some other figures from the time, they really got that red and blue, those sections correct. What's red on him, what's supposed to be red is red, what's supposed to be blue is blue. And I like the raised webbing, almost like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Now, Migo's figure, it only had sculpted webbing on the head, and it was carved into the head. It didn't stand out like this. And compare these two. Here's another loose one. Look how the blue is different. I love that blue color on both of them, but the rubber's different. This is more translucent. And the paint's different, the blue's different. So there are variations in these. And let's see, I'm sure they're both 73. Yeah, 73. Oh, that's interesting. They don't have the markings in the same place. Yeah. Very interesting. So the one with the tag, it says made in Hong Kong on the bottom of his foot. The one without a tag with the darker blue has markings on his rear. So the markings are not the same. Spider-Man, Superheroes, Ben Cooper, Inc., Brooklyn, New York. Made in Hong Kong. $1973. And this tag is some kind of a drop of like syrup or something. It's tacky. I don't know what's going on there. Yikes. Don't know how that happened, but gotta be careful with that. Because when I try to take it out of the bag, it's stuck to the bag. Could be something that's been there all the time, maybe. Who knows with this rubber, because there's latex rubber inside the elastic band, those loops sticking out of their heads. There's latex inside of that, and then there's PVC, petroleum-based rubber. You know, the whole figure is made of that, and those things don't go together. Those substances, and then paper and fabric. The elastic has fabric around it, and you got the paper, and I've got these bags. So you have all these different materials that don't necessarily react well with each other over time. Let's see. I think that's... Okay, so we'll segue now into the later Ben Cooper Superheroes. Here is a different Spider-Man, and this is 1978, 79. And this is part of the second wave of DC, oh, not DC, it's the second wave of Ben Cooper Superheroes. And come to think of it, I accidentally said DC, but interesting how you only had a couple of DCs at the beginning and everything else has been Marvel. Now this Spider-Man is very interesting. He sort of has his hands up like don't shoot. It's not really a flying because his head isn't tilted like that. But he does not have the pupils He really looks like, oh, like a Ralph Bakshi Spider-Man cartoon from the 60s. He's got a different look altogether. And his webbing, it is sculpted so that the webbing is etched into the rubber instead of standing out. It's very different. Still, I think pretty accurate. Yeah, very accurate as far as where the red should be, where the blue should be. Different style tag. And see how it says action figure. Marvel Comics action figure. Ben Cooper tried to market these as action figures. Very different. There was a second, maybe even a third wave of superhero jigglers based on some of these dates. And a lot of people don't differentiate between the different Spider-Men, but as we can see, they're different. Completely different sculpt on the one we just saw, but even those other two with the flying position, there's differences there. Now, well, what should we do? Okay, let's bring out the series that's kind of known to be the rare, expensive ones. These came out very late in the run, 1979, but they're part of the same series as that Spider-Man we just saw, the Marvel Comics action figure line, 1979. There's Red Skull. How often do you see a Red Skull toy? Ben Cooper also had a rubber mask of Red Skull and a boxed costume of Red Skull. And a lot of these characters were, well, they did double or triple duty with Ben Cooper. They had jigglers, they had rubber masks, they had boxed costumes. They must have bought a package of character licenses from Marvel and just exploited the heck out of it. Made whatever kinds of products they could. He's got one arm that's kind of stumpy here. And that shoulder is sort of hunched. He's different. Why they chose to make Red Skull, I don't know. Maybe just he's monstrous. So he fit the Ben Cooper aesthetic. And again, I think a lot of these, even though they say they're action figures, I think a lot of these are intended to be Halloween toys. The catalog actually says, and we saw a catalog in that previous episode, these are year-round sellers. But I think they probably sold a little better in October than they did the other 11 months. This is a really cute one. This is The Thing, Ben Grimm. Aw, he's so cute. He's angry. Look at him. Look at that sculpted rock. Those feet are cute too. Look at, they really look like the comic book character. Much more so than the Mego figure. That would be the other main Thing toy of the time. And then Fun Stuff made a Thing, an expanding Thing. And Ben Cooper made a box costume of the Thing. And I don't remember if they made a rubber mask or not, probably, but I know they made a box costume. And they actually sold that box costume in one of those blue monster boxes that says Monster at the top. It has the Aurora glow kit art of Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, Creature. That series includes a Thing. This Thing. I love his proportions, those big fists and a thick body. I mean, it really does conjure the comic book character. So just like those Popeye toys, there's something about this format, this rubber jiggler format, that just lends itself to these characters, cartoon characters, comic book characters that don't have perfectly human proportions. You can get away with a more accurate depiction in this format. Now these are a little bit stiffer than the earlier ones. They're still oily. You can see they're still jiggly, but they're not as jiggly as that Batman, Superman, Planet of the Apes. They're a little bit stiffer. Not as stiff as that Chinese-made Superman, but still stiff. And if you thought that was weird, take a look at this one. It's kind of hard to to hold him correctly. Let's see. That's Dr. Strange. He's waving hello, hi. He's kind of different because he doesn't have a free arm. The arm is part of the cape, and that's the only figure where we see anything like that. Doesn't quite look like Benedict Cumberbatch. He is kind of jiggly. The back doesn't have a whole lot of details, just blue. Everything's blue. You'd think that maybe they would have made the cape red or something, but no. It's hard to get a grip on him in that obscure part of the toy. I don't know if this came out before or after that TV movie. There was a Doctor Strange TV movie, a pilot for a series that never happened. But if that came out before or concurrent with this toy, then that might explain why they thought Doctor Strange would be a good character to feature. And then lastly, we have a Hulk. And he is dated 1982. At least on the toy itself. He's dated 1982. He's much smaller than some of the other ones. And for a character like the Hulk, you'd think he'd be like the Thing with his arms up, or I don't know, some more exciting pose than this. But no, he's got his arms down to his side. At least he's got fists, so we know he's angry that way. He's a cute little Hulk. And people sometimes get this one confused with I think it's made by Vicks. There's a Hulk that is sort of a scrunchy Hulk that came out around the same time. People get the two confused, but this is a Ben Cooper Jiggler Hulk. It's definitely Ben Cooper. And the other one, I think it's Vicks. I have one, but I had one as a kid, and I have one I bought as a collector. Or man, I may have sold the one I bought as a collector. I don't know, but I'm sure I still have the one my childhood one. And it's very, very similar to this. Very similar, but it's not the same toy. This is a Ben Cooper Jiggler. The other one is something different. Different kind of PVC material. And this is meant to go with these other ones. And it's much smaller than, but you know, all of the Doctor Strange, The Thing, Red Skull, that second Spider-Man, they're all smaller than the earlier ones. I don't know why this Hulk is dated 82. That's pretty late. I'm sure these other ones didn't come out in 82. They came out in 79, just as they're dated. I mean, they're in catalogs and stuff, so I mean, I know when those came out. I don't know if the Hulk was just out on his own, like one of the last jigglers they ever made, because that had to have been around the end of the jiggler period for Ben Cooper. Or if the Hulk was in an assortment with these other ones, I'm not sure. But the Hulk, chronologically, is the last one. Now, there could be some characters I don't know about, but I think by now they would have surfaced. That's all the jigglers I have to show you. I can still do another Ben Cooper jiggler episode. I've got a lot of animals like spiders and flies and scorpions and grasshoppers and snakes and all those kinds of creepy guys. But that's more of a Halloween episode, so I'll save that. So we can do at least one more Ben Cooper jiggler episode. It's a big world to collect Ben Cooper jigglers, and it's hard to encompass them all in one episode. So now we've had 2 episodes, and we might have a third. Well, I think it's a fairly short episode, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. As far as for this channel, for this series, I hadn't had an episode in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to get something out there, and I thought this would be manageable. This would be something I could do without too much difficulty and get it out. The season is practically over. We'll have at least one more episode, maybe 2 more episodes. I'm not sure. And then it'll be the end of the season. And I don't know how quickly I can get those final 1 or 2 episodes out. So I didn't want weeks and weeks to pass without an episode available. So I thought this was doable. I could get this out. And it tied into something we did earlier in the season. So it made sense. I don't know exactly what that final episode or 2 will be. I mean, I have some ideas, but I don't know what will pan out. I don't know that I'll have some kind of grand finale. It might be just 1 or 2 fairly ordinary episodes. I don't know. Or I might pull something out of my hat. We'll see. But it could be a few weeks before the final 1 or 2 episodes are ready. So I thank you for your patience in staying with me. And this season is a little bit shorter than usual, which I told you it would be at the start of the season. In fact, it's already been a little longer than I thought it would be. But I wanted to have some time over the coming months to do some other things, so I needed to compact this season a little bit. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look at these cool jigglers. They were part of my childhood. I certainly had the Batman and the Spider-Man jigglers as a kid. I might have had Planet of the Apes. As I said, I had the Popeye ones. And I had pretty much all of the monster ones, most of the Halloween ones. I had a lot of Ben Cooper jigglers as a kid. They're a big part of my childhood, and I remember them fondly. And I remember going to drugstores and Ben Franklin and dime stores, junk stores, seeing them in bins, like wire bins, or hanging by their elastic from a peg hook, and just going through them. They were fun, cheap toys that, unless you chewed on them, they didn't break very easily. You could really play the heck out of them and bang them around and throw them and put them through some abuse, and they stayed intact. Much more so than an action figure with joints and costume and everything. So they're a very important, fun, fondly remembered part of my childhood. And my request is out there, if you know someone who was involved with the Ben Cooper company back in the day, who would have some knowledge about the jigglers and the production of the jigglers and the thinking behind the jigglers, put me in touch with them. I can't believe there's nobody out there who has any contact with anyone from Ben Cooper who could put me in touch with them. But if I can get in touch with them, I could have a video interview that I would present here, and it might be illuminating. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for watching. Until the next time, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.